Are you serious about planning a successful business exit? From Angel to Exit is your go-to resource. Subscribe to our newsletter at eckfeldt.com/podcast for even more valuable insights. And to get personalized guidance, take our free exit readiness assessment. It's just 24 questions, and it will give you a clear picture of your exit readiness. Find the assessment at eckfeldt.com/exit. Submit your results, and we'll schedule a free follow-up call to discuss your specific situation and the best way to maximize your valuation and ensure a successful transaction. Now, back to the episode. Welcome, everyone. This is From Angel to Exit. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt. I'm your host. Our guest today is Elizabeth Shea. She is a founder. She's an exited founder. She's also a consultant working with companies that are approaching transactions. So we have kind of a double topic here today. Get a chance to hear her story as a founder and her exit, but also the work that she's doing with other companies that are in the exit process. So with all that, Elizabeth, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here.
Yeah. So I'd love to kind of go back and hear the work that you did at SpeakerBox and your story there, both on the kind of the growth side and the exit side. And then we can get into some of the work that you're doing today. Tell me, I guess, before we get into the business side, what's a little bit of the backstory? Like, how did you get into communications? Like, what was the founding story of the business? Give us a little background there.
Sure. So I actually started the business in 1997. So a million years ago, it feels like almost.
When you were 3 and
I was like 3 years old. Yes. I just got out of kindergarten. And I started the business because at the time in 1997, the Washington, D.C. area, which is where I live, there were not many technology PR firms. And I was always a director of marketing, always worked for technology companies. My first job out of college was at Apple Computer in Silicon Valley. Wow. And so I went from there to the East Coast to work for a Macintosh and an Apple Computer distributor called Falcon Microsystems. And then when I went to another company after that, which sold Silicon Graphics Systems, we wanted a PR firm, couldn't find a PR firm. So I decided, well, if there isn't anything around in the neighborhood, let's build one. So I started the company in 1997. I took on a business partner. At the time, we were at that point called Shea Hedges Group. We grew probably for the next couple of years to about a $2-3 million agency, representing just technology companies. Around that time, a lot of other agencies entered the fold and entered into the technology sector. There was the dot-com bust, or dot-com bubble, and then the dot-com bust, as you know. So around that time, my business partner decided to become an executive coach. So she exited the business. So I bought her out. So I had that transactional situation to deal with, which was very, very life learning as well. And then we rebranded as SpeakerBox. So we grew SpeakerBox from 2006 to 2019 when we sold to a company called REQ, again, focusing on the tech sector and primarily business to business and business to government tech companies. So it was a wild ride. We had, we were a boutique firm, but typically represented venture-backed companies and some government contractors for the most part. We had a lot of lessons that we learned along the way. I was a member of Vistage for years, and then I became a member of EO, the entrepreneur organization, and was really able to surround myself with peers, which helped in that journey of figuring out how to build, how to scale. We had an executive coach that was really fantastic who modeled after the Scaling Up program, Everett Harnish. So we really leaned into building a company that could scale and that kept people happy and unique. And I think that was one of the things that was attractive about SpeakerBox when we finally sold to REQ, which was a strategic acquisition. Yeah.
I'm curious when you bought out the partner, like how did you handle? I mean, I went through a similar thing, but there's always this question of valuation and payout and things like that. Like, give us some insights that you learned around how to kind of handle the equity side when you're dealing with partnerships.
It was very interesting because when you're going through a transaction like that, we were told at the very beginning, don't become 50-50 partners. Well, we didn't listen. We became 50-50 partners. So, right, in the end of the day, we had to basically do a shootout, let's create a deal that each one of us can accept. And then if you can turn it around, then that's a realistic endeavor. We never had a problem with the valuation, with the actual cost of what the business is worth. The challenge became dealing with the terms. And I tell this to people all the time, sometimes it's the terms. How much do you pay up front? Is it capital gains? Is it ordinary income? How do you accept that? Is it from a tax treatment standpoint? And that was the bigger challenge. We had to go to mediation for that. And the mediation services, I would tell anyone that's listening, seek help when you need it, because it's really super important to talk to coaches like you, to talk to someone like a mediator, to get legal counsel, because you're too emotional, and it's a very emotional decision that you're going through. So we needed to make decisions on how long her payout would be, whether it was ordinary income, whether or not it was capital gains, and that was just an important determination. And so the mediation helped us to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I always find it's interesting how, the money is important, or the valuation is important, but those terms end up being where everything
It's really important. And on top of that, we ended up deciding not to even share with the company that she was leaving at the time, until we could move the clients over to be under my guidance, and the employees to report more to me, so that it wasn't disruptive to the company. So she worked as a W-2 employee for probably 6 months after we had done the transaction, before we told people. And then by the time we told people, it was seamless. So, it needed to be an amicable divorce, if you will. And it was, but it was still sometimes heart-wrenching.
Well, and you bring up the point, the clients and the employees, which, it's when we treat these businesses as kind of these pure assets, not these kind of living, breathing organisms that have stakeholders that are going to be affected by things, right? That becomes a real issue.
Absolutely. And they really are. And so we thought about the children first, put it that way.
I do a lot of this kind of partner dispute resolution stuff, and my position is always, I take the position of representing the employees and the clients, right? And in that process, and how do I kind of protect them and their interests and their value while, we're working on partnership disputes and stuff. So fascinating kind of area of business coaching. In the business then, so once you had control of the business, like when did you first envision or feel like you had an asset that you could actually sell? Like, what was this, like from the beginning, you knew this is something you were going to sell somewhere? Or
yes, I think it was part of the peer groups that I was involved in that supported and helped me understand that is part of the process. And one of the big mantras that I've always heard is, you build a business that's strong. You build a business to sell, and even if you don't sell, you're building a good business. And so that was always the mantra. I always wanted to have very clean books. Always wanted to have a very thoughtful culture, an intentional culture, and that really meant something to me. So I think I don't think I was prepared to sell when I did sell, but I knew it was time to sell because the market was ready. And I've also always had that mantra: you got to sell when the market's ready for you, not necessarily when you're ready to sell. Because of one of the peer groups I was in, I remember seeing someone that was desperate to sell and thinking, I don't want to be that person. I want to sell when the market's ready. And the time that I sold, the valuations were high, low interest rates were low. And so it was the right time, and it was the right time for me to exit to an organization that could be complementary to the business that I offered.
Interesting. I'm curious, when you say, you want to keep clean books and you wanted to have good culture and stuff, like practically, what did that mean in terms of how you chose to operate, or were there any kind of principles or practices that were really important to you that you knew that were going to help with the transaction process?
So I think as business owners, you tend to say, well, it's kind of my money, but it's not my money. It's the company's money. And that was a mentality shift from my early operator days. I think when I got to the point where I realized this is going to be an asset that's going to be sold to somebody, that I will sell eventually to somebody, and I need to have a look like that for a good 3 to 5 years. So yes, of course, I would take a deduction for my car, whatever the case may be. But I wanted it to be clean, and I wanted to be able to pass what I call the Oprah test. If I can go on Oprah and be able to say something without blushing, then I'm good. Then I'm running a clean business. Also called the red face test. So I would do that, and I would think, and my leadership team was completely with me in the process, and so. Tell me about that. Like, how did your leadership team support you, and how much did they know about that process? They knew everything the entire way. I actually operated a little bit differently, and then I would share with my team, my entire team, what the process was like. So I've always been an open book person. We would share our income statement and our balance sheet with our entire team, down to the interns at our weekly staff meetings. So everyone knew that the goal eventually was to sell and to move to a place where we could exit to a strategic acquirer. And that was always the goal. And part of the reason is because what our team would understand is that we knew that we could only be so valuable as a public relations firm. We really needed the added capabilities of a digital marketing services arm. So that's what we were looking for. We knew it hurt us in delivering client service. So people would know when we celebrated, we finally did find an acquirer, that people would be happy.
Yeah.
So my two team members, Katie and Lisa, they've been with me over 20 years each, respectively. They were definitely a part of the process and definitely part of helping to clean up the books, do our roadshow, all those things that we did when we set out to this process. It was a very intentional process.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about that. I mean, because I think, a lot of companies I've talked to, they get some kind of unsolicited offer and then they're kind of like, oh, maybe we'll talk to a few other companies. It ends up being a little bit of an ad hoc process. I mean, it sounds like you were pretty intentional and pretty focused. What, I guess, it sounds like market and interest rates, like you saw some timing, but what else kind of pushed you into, okay, we're going to start this and we're committed to exiting the business?
Well, I probably started 3 or 4 years prior to our actual transaction and doing my own research and understanding what are the players like, who are the brokers out there that I might want to represent us. What do we need to do to make sure that we really look clean and solid and have a good value proposition to bring to the table. And frankly, we did for ourselves what I'm doing now in the company that I founded, which is we packaged ourselves. We got our executives out there on the speaking circuit. We won a bunch of awards. We wanted to really look like we really wanted to look like we were a game changer in the industry. And I think that helped set us apart to the point where when we ended up going to market with a broker, we had 6 or 7 offers within a matter of a couple of days, which isn't anything to write home about. Most companies do. Most companies would get that number of offers, and we were able to make a decision. But that was a process in and of itself. And I think that when because we had educated ourselves enough on the process, and it was a journey with me and I consider my 2 partners, Lisa and Katie, then it made it that much easier for us to determine what was going to be the right fit for us and who would be the right fit for us. Now, I will say that we went down the path with one agency that was based in New York, and we ended up pulling out at the very last minute. So I was kind of a runaway bride a little bit, 2 weeks before the deal was done. And that was a situation of funding. Even though it was the best offer and it seemed like to be the best fit, there was a challenge with some of the funding elements, which we hadn't anticipated given the size of the organization. Yeah. So we pulled out, said, let's just take a breather. Tensions are high, and you'll hear people say all the time, deals get done, deals die all the time.
Yeah.
We thought this deal died, and for the most part it had. So about 6 or 9 months later, another agency came our way, and we had already gone through the process with many of these other agencies. Yep. So we ended up going through it with REQ, and they became our acquirer in January of 2019.
Yeah, I'm curious when you. It sounds like you did a lot of research. You were pretty educated coming into this. How did you choose your broker? Like, what was the criteria you were looking for? Like, how? Yeah, I'm just kind of curious how that process worked.
Yes. Well, the broker I chose was a group called the Tobin Left Group, and they specialize in marketing services agencies. There were pretty much two brokers in town. That I know of that were that specialize in M&A for marketing services firms, and they had also done it themselves. So here are some. These are a couple of brokers who had marketing services agencies and sold themselves, and they'd put a lot of educational materials out there, webinars. Yeah, they met with me several times. They were so patient. They went through my runaway bride phase, and then they stuck with me through my sale to eventually REQ. So I think having someone that understands your industry is really important, understands who the buyers are, and understands that there needs to be a cultural fit is important in choosing an investment banker. There are so many that are out there, but I think the ones that can really zero in on who you are as a company and where you're going to be happy and because you want it to last, because you want to make sure that they make the earnout and then they actually stick around. Yeah. So I think that's important, and I think that they did a really nice job of doing that. And David Tobin, who was one of the founders of that agency, did a really nice job.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about the process. I mean, so you found a buyer. You had already gone through I'm assuming some level of due diligence with a couple other firms. Like, what was it like kind of doing this again with a new suitor? How did it change the fact that you'd done it a few times?
Well, I will say I was exhausted. I mean,
Yeah.
the process is so exhausting, and no one can appreciate until you go through it how exhausting it truly is. Going through due diligence.
Yeah.
I mean, the paperwork. You've got your head in spreadsheets, and it was exhausting. And I thought, I'm done. I'm done. I was mentally exhausted. I was emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted, and then I happened to come across this company that I had known in the marketplace because they were very respected. REQ is a very respected digital marketing services company in the DC area. And I ran into the CEO and we had a conversation. We went through the process again. So I said, come on, people, we're going to do it one more time, right? And by now, because we already had business cards from the former agency. Like we were ready to go.
Wow.
We had done a video. We were ready to go out to the media and tell our story. And so my whole team, because the entire team knew, at least now they were able to say, wow, cool. We have a local crew. This is our new team. People would look at the website like, oh, this is so exciting. I'll tell you what was surprising was how excited our clients were. And that's when I knew we'd made the right decision because I didn't have to tell the clients and have them say, whoa, you sold out. No, now you have additional capabilities to bring to the table and we're going to grow with you. And so I was with REQ for over 5 years. It was a great run. I think that there's just the process of, it started to feel like getting on a bus again. You got to put together the package, change your story a little bit, update your financials. You're constantly updating your financials. Yeah. It's not like buying a house, frankly. Yeah. All right, well, now I'm going to see your pay stubs again right before you go to closing. All right, we're still here. I still have a job. So, yeah, it was quite a process.
And anything about the terms, right? I'm kind of curious in terms of like what became kind of the real negotiation points for the deal. Was it valuation? Was it terms? Was it earnout? Was it structure?
So same deal. No one was discussing or questioning the valuation. I wasn't, and they weren't. What I was really happy to see was that I think, and I do believe this to be true, because of the work we had put in up front, we appeared to be bigger. We had a very solid, we had all the right kind of stories. We had good client concentration, or lack of client concentration. We had client diversification. We had a strong leadership team that was really out there. We had a niche that we could bring to the table that was unique in the B2B and B2G tech space. So we had all those things on paper that mattered in evaluation. So we got on the higher end of the exit multiple range. And that was really good. Where it got really sticky was, do we keep our name? What's the earnout period? Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? How much up front? Was it capital gains or is it ordinary income? All the things I went through as a business partner. But at least I felt like I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd gone through with a business partner. So we had it was a really interesting negotiation. And my attorney and their attorney, I think at the end, shook hands and said, this was probably one of the easiest transactions we've ever done because we both knew what we wanted. Yeah. Of course, I have some regrets of things that I wish I would have pushed more for, but that's in any situation for the most part. I wish we would have kept our name longer. I mean, I think our name had a lot of equity. It was kind of a cool name too, to be honest. I thought SpeakerBox was cool. Yeah. And so we lost some of that equity going into the transaction, but other than that, we were all very happy with the deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was very happy.
How I guess how much did you understand or know what the buyer was really interested in? And how did they see the deal in terms of where they saw your value, how it was going to kind of plug into what they were doing as a business? Because it was a very strategic, right? They were buying capabilities that were going to expand their capability. So how did you assess or how did you understand what was going to drive value for the buyer, and how did that affect how you approached the negotiation?
I didn't know any of that. I'm not going to lie. I had no idea what their grand vision was. And that's what I should have probably probed more to understand. In hindsight, you can question a lot of things. And that was one of the things I didn't ask what the grand vision was. I did know that he was on an acquisition trail. So he acquired us, and then he acquired another company shortly thereafter. He had acquired 2 other companies prior to me. So I should have said, duh, of course he wants to package this up and sell it. But I didn't put that together at the time. I thought he truly was building an agency of world-class services. So, but all good. I mean, we went the next 3 or 4 years, finished my earnout after 3 years. I continued to stay. And we did have a really nice world-class agency. We represented, I know that he wanted us for our tech background. And I wanted I wanted his services for the digital marketing capabilities we could bring to our clients. So from that standpoint, it was a pretty nice marriage.
Yeah.
I will say the challenge was that because it was so close to the pandemic, we weren't really able to integrate and become one culture in an easy and mindful way. So that was one of the challenges that we had. But I do think that looking back, we were definitely part of the equation, because a tech PR firm can have a higher multiple upon exit if we're part of the package, if they're a full service agency.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, how that integration worked, just from a leadership and kind of ownership point of view. I mean, you go from, basically owning and running an agency to now having sold it and being an executive inside of another agency. Like, what was that like for you personally?
I will say at times it was soul crushing. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm not going to say that this was all like, cookies and rainbows or whatever the expression is. I mean, it was soul crushing. I ran a company for 20 years and kind of called the shots, and all of a sudden they did things differently. And so it was a really hard adjustment period that I went through, and my team went through as well. I don't think they experienced quite the same way that I did, but I think just even though when we did our first sales pitch together, they sold very differently than we did. They would stand up and be formal and sit on one side, and we would sit on our side and be intermingled, and just we were scrappier. Yeah. It was just a different way of selling and a different way of approaching our client engagements. Yeah. It wasn't the wrong way. It was just a different way. Yeah. It was just different. And so that adjustment period, and nobody prepared me for that. Nobody prepared me for that. And that is the one thing I would tell anyone who is going to think about this process, that you got to be prepared for that, because they will probably not look to you in the way that you think that they might look to you. It's human nature. This is their business to run, and you're a part of that business, and you're going to do things the way that they do things. And so I say soul crushing, not to be extreme, but to say that it was something that I wish I would have been prepared to deal with. Yeah. Because in the meantime, I'm also going through all the rest of the due diligence pieces and getting contracts assigned over. And I mean, it's just a lot of extra work when your heart is really about building a business and thriving in a business. And it's very different. Yeah. It's very different. The cultures never really became aligned to the point when REQ then subsequently sold to private equity in 2023, we were three different cultures. We were the SpeakerBox culture, the REQ culture, and the IMI culture, which was the company that they acquired after they acquired us. Yeah. So that's hard, but that has to be intentional. It has to be intentional if you're going to be acquiring companies, to pull them together and pull the cultures together in a way that you can actually be a stronger force. And I think that was a miss on all of our parts. We all take responsibility for that.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, I find most acquisitions roll-ups struggle with that, and many of them never really achieve it. So, so when did you kind of, I think, so you had a 3-year earnout and you stayed for another 2 years, but how did you kind of start thinking about when did you start thinking about what are you going to do next? Like, go from, hey, look, okay, I've sold, I'm here for a while, then what? Like, when did that question start coming into your mind?
So it did happen probably 2 years ago. So after my earnout, I was preparing to leave. I just thought that's what you do, you leave. Yeah. And we had grown, we had doubled the size of my organization within that time period. So I was feeling very happy and very proud. And, financially that really paid off as well. So I thought, I really want to start a business to help companies exit their business and do it the way that we did it, and do it with intention, and do it not like a broker would. That wasn't my goal, game plan, but to help companies package themselves. Well, right around the time that I was preparing to leave, REQ sold to a private equity firm. And so as it often happens, the founder exited the private equity firm and went on his way. And so the private equity firm put me in charge of REQ, the whole entity. So now I wasn't just running my SpeakerBox portion, my PR team, I was running the entire company. Yeah. And I thought, you know what, this is a really good opportunity for me to have a learning experience for what it's like to work for private equity. And the private equity firm had acquired 7 other agencies. So I was one of the division presidents of 7 people that are trying to come together to integrate. So I did that for the next 2 years. So I put that whole business idea on hold. Okay. And worked with the private equity firm for Yeah, probably almost 2 years, and
Yeah.
got to know the other division presidents and
What
heard
was that
their
like?
stories
Like,
about how they sold.
yeah, yeah. What
And
did you learn in that process? I'm curious.
oh my gosh, I learned that private equity is a whole different ballgame than selling to a strategic, which is why the name of my company now is Tree Fork Strategies, because you can fork. You can either sell to private equity or you can sell to a strategic. And
I
it's
love
two
it.
different paths.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with private equity. It's just a different experience. And so the focus is definitely around growth. Unfortunately, we weren't in a low interest rate period anymore. So
Game
the
changer.
challenges were much tougher to deal with, and we needed to continue to demonstrate growth. And the marketing services industry within the last year or so has really taken a beating with the advent of AI and other technologies, and marketing budgets being what they are. The whole agency in general of the 7 division presidents all really had a time of struggle.
Yeah.
So it became time to integrate. And we had a couple different periods of integration where we would slowly bring these agencies together. So I was able to experience what that's like.
Yeah.
And it was really fascinating to be at the table to talk about how do you bridge these organizations that have different cultures, different ICPs, customer profiles, and customer profiles, and make it work to the market.
Yeah.
And so I'm still technically an advisor there because I do want to see it succeed. And I think it will succeed once they can really compartmentalize the kind of services and leverage AI in a way that the market is going to adapt. But I did decide before the last round of integration tactics, as they come together as one, I did decide that I really wanted to get back to my entrepreneurial roots and start a company again. So I did my private equity stint. It was 2 years. It was, nose to the ground, head in spreadsheets again.
Yeah.
Very different from what I'd been used to when I had my own company. So now I'm back, and it's been about 2 or 3 months. It's been great.
Yeah. And how has that transition been? Like, how have you gone from, having a big team and, lots of executives and things like that back to being an entrepreneur? What are you enjoying about it? And what are some of the challenge maybe you kind of forgot about or hadn't anticipated making that change?
You can never really see what's on the other side. And what I didn't expect was to feel lonely,
Interesting.
I'm
Tell
not
me
getting
more.
emails. How come people aren't calling? I mean, just full transparency. I'm like, hey, I'm over
This is
here.
classic.
Like, don't you need me anymore?
Uh-huh.
And I think as a founder, you have to recognize that that's just going to be the case. You're just not going to be needed. You're not that important. And as much as, and I would say, well, so how's business going? Did you sell anything today? And it was sort of bittersweet. I will say there was a certain level of liberation, of course, I get to do my own thing again. And the new company I've just been so excited about the reception that I've had, the kind of clients that are coming to me, what they really want to do. They really do need help. And so that's very satisfying and rewarding. Yeah. But you can't be an entrepreneur, sell your business and walk away and not say, wow, I kind of miss being there in charge.
Yeah.
I kind of miss that, Yeah. And I did, and I still do. Do. I mean, I was invited to the holiday party, and I was so touched. I said, really? Really? I get to go to the holiday party? I'll bring my dessert. I'll bring my potluck.
What can I bring?
What can I bring? It really was touching, and probably more so than they even thought about it.
Yeah.
But, it's hard to leave a team when you have such a strong team and such a strong culture.
It's an emotional connection.
It's a very emotional roller coaster. And I will say time and time again, there's no way that you can be a founder and not have that emotional experience that you go through and the emotional roller coaster. And you have to be able to accept it, embrace it, and understand it. Yeah. And, I had periods of depression, where this is like, I lost my baby. Where's my baby? And this is how we're supposed to be doing things. And that wasn't how we were doing things anymore. So I think I'm excited to be back in charge of my own destiny, and that's what I'm trying to do at Chief Work.
I love it. So tell me more about, so you mentioned you're helping businesses kind of package themselves, but you give me some more insights into how you're really approaching this. Like, where do you see the opportunity? Where are you seeing kind of the value that you're creating for some of these clients?
Yes. So what I'm finding is that with founder-led organizations in particular, and professional services firms, really, that's my particular niche. With the exception of also some tech companies, but that's a different conversation. professional services firms, they typically need to demonstrate their own expertise. They need to have a niche. You don't want to look like every other professional services company that does what you do, whether it's a marketing firm, government contractor, whether you're a construction company or a home builder. If you're a professional service firm, you're a founder, you want to have some form of differentiation. And so what we say by packaging is not unlike, to use the real estate analogy again, it's not unlike a stager that you might hire to sell your home. You want to look a certain way. You want to be appealing to that buyer. And so strategic buyers typically look for things that are different than a financial buyer or a private equity firm might look for. So if you have an understanding of what you want as your outcome, you got to start with the why. Why do you want to sell? And then who do you want to sell to? If you don't know, well, then we try to work that through to figure out, well, what would be the most likely outcome. If you're going to exit the business, that's a whole different story. If you want to stick around with the business and you want to grow like I wanted to grow, where I wanted to sell to a strategic so I could have more things to offer my clients, then that's a very intentional communications path. So it's about demonstrating your leadership expertise, being around on speaking engagements, winning awards for entrepreneurism or for excellence in your particular craft. It's all those things that will matter and get the attention of buyers. And so I have a colleague who sold his government contracting business, and he got a lot of people coming in after he won a big contract. Well, there's a reason for that, because you're now in the news, and if you win a big contract like that, you're going to be in the news. We really were intentional about getting into the news. So we looked bigger, stronger. We had a really enviable client base, and we still do to this day. I'm very proud of the client base that we have. So we had to put that out there and be intentional. Case studies, webinars, all those things that matter. That's going to matter to a strategic acquirer who wants your capabilities and your brand. Your brand is your intangible asset. It is super, super important that you think about how your brand represents and reflects you as an organization. And that's going to be a different brand than if you wanted to sell to private equity. So if you want to sell to private equity, you got to be on some Inc. 5000 lists. You got to show the hockey stick. They care about scale. They care about growth. And that's what they care about. They want to be able to turn and pivot and be able to sell again down the road. So that's a different story and a different type of packaging. So if you're a professional services firm and you won a couple of big contracts, you have to celebrate that. And it all starts, it sounds so trite, but it's so important. It all starts with your website. It starts with your appearance. It starts with, have your leadership on your website. Some people don't do that. Have your bios out there. Be visible and push that forward for the first maybe 12 to 18 months prior to you wanting to actually enter a transaction. So I remember doing a webinar on this literally 10 to 15 years ago with an investment broker who said that a clean brand is just as important as a clean balance sheet. It really, really matters to have that brand equity, because that will translate when they acquire you, when the buyer acquires you. So 2 different paths: strategic, private equity, little slightly different way to turn. And if you're a product company, because I do have a couple of clients that are product companies, you have to get analyst relation reviews. You have to think about your Glassdoor reviews. Anything that's going to make you attractive to a buyer, you need to be thoughtful about that, because it'll come back to bite you if you haven't really thought through how you appear to the public.
And what's the general time frame? What do you sort of suggest to clients in terms of how long this process takes, or when they get started?
Yes, I have a couple of clients that are looking to exit quickly, so there's not a lot of time. But there are some small things you can do, particularly in the externally facing. Because think about a buyer. Buyers do these deals all day long.
Exactly.
I mean, they're doing lots of transactions, and they're taking probably 90 seconds to maybe a minute to look at what your website says, look at who you are, make a snap judgment, and determine whether or not they want to pursue you. That's assuming they haven't seen your deck, because who knows if they've seen your deck or not. So you want to think about doing as much as you can on the external surface, and then be able to back it up with things in down below. So from a timing standpoint, ideally, you'd want to start about 12 months before. We had a client at SpeakerBox REQ who started working with us, and we did this for our clients at REQ. They would start working with us, and we were able to reposition him from a government contractor to a data analytics firm. And that was a very strategic decision to do that, because he did have a data analytics product. It wasn't a huge part of his revenue, but that was how he was perceived. So we got a much higher multiple than he might have received if he was a government contractor. So, but that took about a year and a half of solid work to be out there, case studies, speaking on panels, going for data analytics awards, things like that. So I would suggest, it's a long way of answering, probably 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Is ideal.
Yeah.
If you're really thinking about it, which is about the time it would probably take anyway to get a deal done and start working with a banker.
Yeah.
Start working with a broker.
Yeah. What and what kind of clients are you generally focused on at this point, or what are you noticing about the people that are interested in doing this work?
So what I'm learning is that smaller venture-backed companies, I've been surprised that they're interested, and I have had a surprising amount of outreach from them. And the reason I say I'm surprised is because I would have thought that the venture capitalists that are funding the investors would have had their own team. But surprisingly, the venture capitalists that I know in my community are saying, this is so important.
Yeah.
We tell our portfolio companies all the time, you've got to be packaged the right way because we want to be able to sell. We want to be able to, we want to get our return out of this. And so
they're stakeholders.
I'm pleasantly surprised to see product companies coming my way. Where I thought I would center my ideal customer profile would be in the mid-market, founder-led professional services firms who really can control their own destiny and aren't listening to investors, or don't have to respond to investors.
Yeah, they don't have a board and stuff.
Or don't have a board that really cares. Now, not all investors, but I've been pleasantly surprised that it's the venture capitalists that I know in this community that are telling their portfolio companies, you need to talk to these people because you got to package yourself. Because we're at the end of our horizon.
We're hitting the end of the runway. We've got to figure out what to do. Yeah.
So those are the ideal mid-market. I think if you're a private equity backed already, you probably have a team of people and they probably know these things. Not always, but they probably already know these things, and so it's less likely that they might be seeking my services out.
Yeah. And any observations on the general market at this point, like in terms of companies that are going to market? What are you noticing about, who's buying these days? Why are they buying? What are they buying?
I think, I feel like there have been times when M&A is hot, and I just feel that M&A is hot right now in particular sectors. Government contracting is pretty hot right now for exiting. I live in Washington, D.C., so that's comes with the territory. Yeah. And that's for a slew of reasons I'm not going to go into right now. But the government contractors, I think, are looking for both strategic and also private equity financial transactions, potentially. I think that there's never a bad time to sell. I mean, there really isn't. It's just a matter of what you're willing to accept. Yep. But I also know that when there's a really good time to sell, then that's when you should jump on it, because if the market's ready and there are buyers out there, it's more about when the buyers are ready to buy you. Like you don't sell your company, companies buy you. So that's the mantra to live by, in my opinion. And so that's why I said be ready when those buyers are there, because they're going to be there. And that's just the way that this world is operating right now, is growth through acquisition primarily, and then pivoting.
Yeah. I talk a lot about being buyable. Right. You always want to be viable, right? I mean, even if you don't want to sell at a moment, like it's good to be viable because you never know what options are going to be there. And you want to be able to take advantage of things when they come up.
And I really believe you don't want to be doing a fire sale. You don't want to 100%. Sell because you need to sell and then not be able to really, truly reap the rewards of what you built.
Yeah. Elizabeth, this has been a pleasure. If people want to find out more about you, about the work that you're doing today, what's the best way to get that information?
Well, you can visit my website, which is treeforkstrategies.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Elizabeth Shea, Shea, and my email is eShea, ESHEA, at treeforkstrategies.com. Would love to hear from you.
Perfect. I'll make sure all that is in the show notes so people can get it. Thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.